to the village. Welcome, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I hope everyone is having a great week so far and you are ready for our live discussion. And it's all about bullying principles. That's right. We're going to talk about it because October is National Bullying Prevention Month. And we're going to talk about what that looks like at the workplace. Teachers, I know you have heard horror stories of teachers being bullied by their principals, or maybe you've even experienced a bullied principal. We want to hear about it. Join the discussion and let's learn how we as teachers can stand up to our bullied principals. How do we respond? How do we handle it? Like, how do we even know that we're being bullied? Like, how do you know you're in that type of situation? And how do you respond? Who do you report to? We want to hear from you guys, and we're going to talk about it. So again, welcome to the village and join our discussion today. I'm Dr. Roz, CEO and founder of the Village Leadership Group, LLC. And we're all about coming together for who? For the teachers. We want to encourage, inspire, motivate, and collaborate with teacher leaders. Why? Because we believe teacher leadership is a mindset, not a position. So we want to hear from our teachers so that we can improve teaching and learning in our schools. Just right. We're building collaborative cultures for our schools, not toxic cultures, but collaborative cultures. So we're talking about bullying principles today. Now, I'm not going to be here by myself. I invited another teacher leader, one of my friends, Miss O'Donnell, to join the discussion. Welcome to the village.
I love it. Thank you. So excited to be here.
So, listen, I've known you for years, but can you please introduce yourself to the village?
Sure. My name is Tammy O'Donnell. I am currently teaching English in the Prince George's County School District, which I love. And I've been teaching for over 30 years, had a lot of experiences in this area, unfortunately. Most recently, though, I am very involved in the union and have been doing some workshops around our negotiated contract and seeing the way that we negotiate contracts to include things like this is kind of a sad thing that we have to do, but it's to the point where we have to actually address it word for word. So I'm just excited to be here and, share some tips and talk about bullying. Sad, but we got to do it.
Unfortunately, we have to talk about it. Now, again, this is October and this is National Bullying Prevention Month. And normally we talk about bullying as it relates to our students. Like, what do we do to prevent bullying at our schools? And I know for our school, we're doing different things. Some of our student leaders are putting on campaigns. I created like a little competition to win lunch with the principal. If you talk about how you can demonstrate our core values and prevent bullying as well. So I know other schools are doing something this month to recognize National Bullying Prevention Month. But it's sad, like you said, that we have to also think about bullying at the workplace as it relates to adults bullying other adults. And in particular, principals who bully teachers. I've been in that situation where I've witnessed it and also been a victim of it. So again, we want to share some tips on how to deal with it, how to respond, how to even identify it, especially for our new teachers. They may think that toxic culture, that bully principal, that's the norm. And we want our new teachers to know, no, that is unacceptable. And we're going to give some tips on how to respond to that. So again, guys, join the discussion. We'd love to hear your comments. So, let us hear from you. So, Ms. O'Donnell, the first thing is, what is bullying? Like, just something basic, like the definition of bullying. What is it?
Yeah, so, when you think of bullying, you do think of students bullying other students, right? Give me your milk money or I'll beat you up in the cafeteria, right? But when we talk about adults bullying other adults, it doesn't really fit that way, right? So bullying is any kind of intimidation, any kind of coercion, any kind of negative response that another adult gives to you, like an ultimatum, right? Makes you feel uncomfortable, makes you think, I don't know if I should be doing that, right? So when we talk about bullying adults, we think that never happens. But if you've seen news recently, you see school boards being bullied, you see teachers being bullied, you see doctors and nurses being bullied. So it's happening a lot more now than it used to. It used to sound like just harassment, right? This principal keeps coming into my room, watching me, doesn't say anything, and then leaves the room. And, it happens quite often, and you feel like you're being harassed. Well, a definition of harassment isn't the same as bullying. And I think that's where teachers kind of stood up and said, we need to have something more specific to the type of, or more specific definition to the type of things that's happening in the classroom, because harassment and discrimination are completely different from bullying and intimidation.
Right. I want to put up the definition for harassment. The harassment includes the actual or perceived negative actions that offend, ridicule, or demean someone based on their race, their gender, their religious beliefs, and so on. So that's more harassment. And so I haven't been a victim of harassment, and I haven't seen that as common as bullying in the workplace. So, Ms. O'Donnell, can you give some examples for teachers, like the difference? Like, how does that show up in the school when we talk about bullied principals?
So if a teacher feels uncomfortable from a request that a principal is giving, if you're talking about harassment, that could be sexual harassment, right? That could be verbal harassment where they're just berating you all the time and talking down to you. But when we talk about intimidation and bullying, it's more like coercing you into doing things that you don't necessarily want to do. And this is so true of new teachers, because new teachers, they're starting their career. They don't really know what the norm is in the school. So if a principal says, hey, you're going to come in on Saturday and you're going to work for free and you're going to do some tutoring on a Saturday and you're going to do it from 9 till 2. And the new teacher's like, well, maybe that's just what new teachers do, to kind of get their foot in the door and, make nice with the administration. But when it becomes something more than that, when you feel like, geez, I don't think I should be giving up my Saturdays to do this. I don't think that, every waking hour I need to, be at the beck and call of the principal, because, I'm afraid I might get fired if I say no. Saying no is okay. It's okay to tell somebody, no, I don't want to do that. But teachers, they tend not to do that right away because they want to be pleasing. Okay, I want to help out. Teachers have that kind of giving spirit. But there comes a time when you have to put your foot down, when you have to say, I'm going above and beyond at this point. I can tell a personal story. When I was teaching in New York, I had a situation. I was a new teacher, fresh out of college, my first job, youngest teacher in the building. So everybody else that worked there were in their 40s and 50s. So they had been at the same school for a long time. Everybody knew everybody. And, I got there and the principal was like, okay, so you're going to do the color guard. Okay, sure, I'll do the color guard. Oh, and we want you to direct the play. And we want you to give up half of your lunch so that you could do lunch duty. And when I said, you know what, I really don't want to give up my lunch because I like to have lunch with the students. I like them to come in my room and tutor. And he was like, no, this is not a choice. This is not a democracy, Miss O'Donnell. This is a dictatorship. And I was like, oh, what? And, in talking with other teachers, they were like, yeah, that's how it is for the first few years you're here. And then, somebody else new comes in and, he goes to them and makes them do all of the dirty work, right? All of the things that nobody else wants to do. And because you're a new teacher, you think you have to do it.
Right.
So, that's, intimidating, where you feel like if I don't do this thing, I'm going to lose my job. That's not the normal people You should never feel like that. Like if I say no to the principal, I'm going to lose my job. There's a reason we have contracts, right?
And unfortunately, you see that so much. I've been a victim of that as well. And intimidation, we'll put the definition of as well. But that's subjecting someone to threats and, putting them in a situation where they fear losing their job, basically.
Right.
So when that new teacher says no, or they try to stand up or advocate for themselves, they're getting threatened. Or like, what's wrong with you? Don't you care about the school? You're not committed. Oh, so you're one of those teachers. So you're belittling that person, making them feel bad, making them feel like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not meeting the standard as everyone else.
Right. And I've heard principals who will stand at the door as teachers are leaving and be like, must be nice to leave right at the bell. You sure you don't have anything you need to do after school? Any papers you need to grade? Well, I can grade papers at home. And then, that always, when I hear teachers tell me that, principals are checking in on them, that's a form of intimidation. It may not be, outright, but it's that, kind of, you almost feel like you have to walk on eggshells around certain people because, if you come in late, are they going to write you up just out of spite? Are they going to give you an opportunity to explain why you're a couple minutes late? Maybe there was an accident on the Beltway. It's definitely not a good feeling to have that kind of, you were talking about toxic environments where, everyone is kind of kowtowing to this person and they're intimidated by this person. Right. So they don't want to speak up. They don't want to be that teacher that kind of rocks the boat. Just do what the principal asks and just let it be. Exactly. It's not a good way to live.
And so we talk, like you said, creating a toxic culture. And within the village, we talked about that before. And our goal is to encourage teachers to work collaboratively and to trust and, take risks. And so that they're collaborating with administration and principals and everyone's working together as a learning organization. But when you have a bully principal, then people are compliant. They're working to the rule. They're doing what they supposed not working to the rule, but they're doing extra because they're fearful, because they were intimidated. And so, but they're miserable because they feel as though they're trapped to doing these things, or they're not good enough, or I have to do all of these things, or I'll be threatened or written up. So again, people aren't trusting each other. They're not taking risks. And they hate, these people hate coming to work. And we don't want that, especially during a pandemic, when teachers have all this stress and all of this things to deal with already. We don't need to add an extra layer of burden on our teachers. Right. So, Ms. O'Donnell, you are a union rep, a building rep, so help us. What do we do? What do we do?
Well, the first thing I always tell people is you have to know your contract, right? You have to really look at your everybody says, I just really kind of look at how many days do I get off a year and what's my pay scale, right? That's pretty much what everybody looks at. But there are things in there that some principals know that you don't know is in there, like planning time. Across the country, this is a conversation about how much time should a teacher have during their workday to plan, because we're one of few professions that actually work, extra hours. We take stuff home. And if you talk to any teacher, they will tell you, you're up until 9 or 10 o'clock at night grading papers, you're up in the morning. So, to have a space during the day to be able to do some of that work so that you don't have to take so much work at home. There's in almost every contract I've seen, working with the union, there's always been some kind of designated hours. You have 225 hours during the week. You have 180 hours during the week for planning. Well, if you're a new teacher and you come in and, okay, well, you're going to have planning on Monday and Friday, but Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday during your planning time, we're going to have professional development, or we're going to have you attend a meeting for new teachers. Well, that's not what the contract says. So as soon as you learn your contract and what you are, you know, if you're talking about working to the rule, you have to know the rules to work to the rule. Then you can say, well, I think, you know, I think it says on page 4 of my contract that such and such and such. Because until you do that, they're just going to keep walking over you, you know. And we really do have to start using our voices and stand up and say, you know what, I'm not going to live like this. I was just looking recently, when I knew we were talking about this. There have been studies that talk about how this kind of bullying affects a victim outside of the workplace, not just in their workplace, but outside of their workplace. And if you think about it, how many times have we, you know, had experiences at work that we took home with us because it's just so traumatic and it's just so negative, and you know, you end up going home and still feeling that way. And like you said, you don't want it that. You want a collaborative, a communicative, a you know, creative workspace to work with people. Right. And unfortunately, those are few and hard to find, really. But knowing the contract is probably the first thing that I always tell people, because unless you know what's in those pages, then you don't have a leg to stand on. If you know, then you can say, this is not right. This is not what it says. This was a hard bargain that we had to do at the table. We fought for this, and I'm not going to let anybody take it away from me. So there's that. And then, you know, if it still goes on in kind of backdoor ways, you know, where I'll give you your 225 hours, but I'm also going to give it to you in weird increments just to make it difficult for you. You know, that's when you start to, you know, rally the troops. There's strength in numbers, and nobody's saying to go out there and egg the principal's car or anything. You know, just it's time to have a conversation. Listen, this is the environment you're creating. This is how we feel. What can we do together to try to fix it? Sometimes there are principals who don't realize, believe it or not, that they're bullies. And I think that's really important. Some people just have this kind of natural demeanor that is kind of standoffish, and it does turn people off. But unless you ask those questions, you know, is there something going on? Maybe there's an issue with the principal's family and you don't know about it, or a supervisor's family, you don't know. So I think it's important to have those conversations before jumping. Lots of times people are like, we need to grieve this. We need to get rid of this principal. No, first you need to have a conversation, right? You need to get a group together and say, is it just me or is this happening to everybody? Okay, what can we suggest as an improvement so that we don't feel this way when we leave, you know, when we go home? Or maybe the principal doesn't even realize that this is an issue. So I think that's another important thing. And then if it is,
that's really good. I wanted to add to your point, because I was having a conversation with someone and she mentioned the same thing, that you should, you know, have a conversation with that principal because it will help make that principal better. Right. Because again, hopefully that person is a reflective leader where they go home and kind of think about, you know, how can I improve? How can I be a better leader? So if we don't give that principal feedback, then how can they grow? How can they change? And how can they get better? So if teachers are just going along with the program, then that principal may think that what I'm doing is okay. So it's good to advocate. It's good to have a conversation. Of course, you want to do it respectfully. But again, give that principal feedback and say, hey, you know, the culture, you know, is kind of toxic right now. This is what's, you know, this is how I feel. And I'm pretty sure other teachers feel the same way.
Right. And, you know, I've seen that in action. I've seen, you know, in a small setting, people, you know, just kind of talking and one teacher saying, you know what, principal, you know, what you said in that meeting, I didn't really think it was appropriate. I think that it really turned a lot of people off. And, you know, some principals will say, really, you think so? What, should I have said it a different way? And some principals are going to say, I'm going to say what I want to say when I want to say it. And that's it. Like, if they're offended, then they should leave. You know, and that whole, you know, if you don't like it, get off the bus, or if you don't like it, there's the door. That's intimidation. You know, you're going to make me feel like if I don't go along with something that feels wrong to me, I'm going to get fired. Or, you know, you're going to make my life miserable. That's another thing a lot of supervisors will say, you know, if you don't do this, I'm going to make your life miserable. Nobody wants to work in that kind of environment. And that's when you start seeing teachers leaving, leaving the profession, leaving the building, going into a different career field, because I think we all are at this point now, especially after the pandemic, of knowing that there's more to life than just working, right?
Exactly.
There are more things. So, I mean, if I'm going to work, I want to work in an environment that I want to work in, that's going to allow me to be collaborative and creative. I don't need to be in an area that I don't feel valued, that, I feel like I'm being belittled every time I walk in the door. So, yeah, I think, and having a conversation with the principal is so, because again, you don't know what's going on. They don't know that you feel this way.
Right. Now, let me ask you this as a rep. So let's say, I'm feeling bullied or intimidated, but some of the other teachers may not feel that way. And I feel like it's just targeted towards me. And I want to have conversations with the person, but I don't feel comfortable.
Right.
Should I talk to my rep? Maybe I can have a meeting with the rep and the principal together if I don't feel comfortable. Walk me through that. Like, what would you suggest?
Sure. So, if it's a personal thing, a personality thing, or it's just something that you're feeling yourself, most schools will have some kind of faculty advisory council where, there's 3 or 4 teachers and they're able to listen to what your concerns are and kind of make sure that they pull out the important pieces of it. And then, they will go in with you and sit with you and kind of just mediate. Usually we try not to, input anything. We just want to be there as support for the person, because we do, if the person comes to us, it's clear that there's something going on, right? Nobody just comes to us to say, hey, I don't like the principal. Will you come to a meeting with me? No, there's got to be some kind of issue, something specific. And we'll sit down and we'll kind of just sit there and listen to the conversation. And if we feel that it's still not being addressed, then we can take it to the next level. Then, you bring in somebody from the union office, you have a conversation with them about what you're feeling and what's going on. And maybe we just escalate it a little bit, to say, listen, you can't treat this person this way, and then you just keep going till you grieve it. And, we've had situations, we were just talking in a union meeting the other day, a teacher was fired because the principal did not like his union activity. That was it. He got perfect scores on evaluations. Everything else was fine. She just happened to not like the fact that he was so involved in the union. And it escalated and went through this whole process to the point where they had mediation, and the mediator said, you're right. She fired you because she doesn't like your work with the union. So you can go teach over here then. But I'm thinking, what? So that principal is allowed to stay without any kind of we go through so much training. Why can't this person go through some training or some, maybe they don't understand the union process. But, there are levels, and you can go all the way to the grievance committee and grieve it to the highest level. And we have had principals who were removed because, teachers really felt that it was such a toxic environment. They couldn't work there. They were bringing it home. They were calling in sick. They didn't feel well. And, sometimes when you're in a big school district, the person at the top can't see everything that's happening.
Right.
So, yeah. So sometimes you got to do that. You got to go that step. Nobody wants to. Nobody says that's the first thing I want to do. They just want a working environment where they feel good about being there.
Definitely. So I want all of the teachers to know, I want to encourage you guys. I know it sounds really negative, our discussion, but there's hope.
Yeah.
Because you have teachers who are there in your building who will definitely support you, will listen to you, find who your union reps are, find the teacher leaders in your building who can advocate for you, who can help support you. So again, you have the village. So share your concerns or your questions with us, and we will work collaboratively to kind of give you some type of ideas and strategies to resolve those issues. Again, no teacher deserves to be bullied or intimidated by their principal. Again, all schools should be collaborative, should be happy. You should be excited to go to work, because if not, then who suffers? Our students.
Mhm.
Okay, so when we have a toxic culture where the adults are not getting along, then our students suffer, right? So again, we need to do better. So all the principals, I know it sounds like we're attacking our principals, we're not. We have great school leaders out there, but we do have a few who just need more training, like Ms. O'Donnell said. They may just need some coaching or some feedback so that they can change their leadership style. Because again, the goal is to make sure that our school culture is collaborative so that everyone's working together for the best interest of our students. So Ms. O'Donnell, give some final words of encouragement to our teachers within the village.
Yeah, I mean, there are some environments that are such a blessing that everything is unicorns and rainbows, right? But that a lot of times that's because you have somebody in leadership who really wants to nurture that kind of environment, right? So it's not hopeless. And some principals, especially if they're new, and they're just starting out their administrative life, sometimes they just need to have a little guidance. We all make mistakes. We all are going to be guilty of, jumping to conclusions and letting some stereotypes or perceptions get in the way of what is really happening. So, I just encourage people to have those doors of communication open, because without that, then it's just a lot of jumping to conclusions and things don't always go the way you think they're going. So you just need to have those courageous conversations with people in your building, with principals, with administrators. And, things can turn around in an environment where you thought it was toxic. It doesn't mean that it's hopeless. It doesn't mean that you're in this black hole forever. You can make a change. Even simple, small changes make a big difference to the culture of a school.
Thank you so much, Ms. O'Donnell, for joining the village. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Don't be a stranger. Until next time, I'll talk to you later, though. Look. Listen, everyone else. Again, I know this was a heavy topic. For me, I've had a few experiences with bully principals, but like Ms. O'Donnell says, there's hope. So be encouraged. Make sure that you find your village. Find teachers, leaders, and coaches, mentors who can support you and help advocate for you. All right, so you're not in this alone. Together, we're village strong. And remember, teacher leadership is a mindset, not a position. See you next time.